new video. And yes, I'm back. And so this video I will give you tips about how to get the most out of your Italian lessons, whether you go to group lessons or to private lessons. So these tips will help you really get the most you can out of those lessons. The basic, so the fundamental thing is that you need to do your work. So you can't expect that just going to your lessons or working just on those hours that you are in class will help you. No, you will make some progress, you can, but it will go very slowly. Basically you need to keep practicing. So, you know, teachers are not training mind males, so we are not Balkans training mind males. So if you go to a lesson, you can expect that by osmosis, what the teacher knows will go into your mind. It doesn't go from my mind to your mind. You need to keep practicing, you need to keep working. So, and first tip, make an effort to learn the grammar. I know it's difficult, I know it's boring, it can be very boring, but it's like the bones of your body. So if the language is your body, the grammar is the bones. You can't stay without it. You can't learn a language without it. I mean, you will, if you don't learn grammar well, you maybe will be able to understand something, but you won't go behind the level of a phrase book. You won't become really autonomous, and you won't be able to make really good sentences. So please learn the grammar. And you know, it doesn't need to be boring. You can play around with it. You know, you can making short sentences. You know, you can make some like cards and switch them around and see if you recognize forms. You can make it more playful. It doesn't need to be boring. And talking about the short sentences, we come to our second tip. So it's true that when you go to private lessons or group lessons, whatever you do, you have exercises. So you have sentences to practice. But my advice, I advise strongly to also start making your own sentences as soon as possible. When you make your own sentences, you need to think about everything. You need to think about which words to use. You need to think about the grammar. So also that's a reason why you need to learn the grammar. You need to think about syntax. So how you put those words in a sentence, the order, which order you need to use. And so it's more difficult. And mostly when you start taking the step, it can really seem like a mountain. But if you start doing your own sentences as soon as possible, even something short, you don't need to start with the Divina Commedia or with the Odyssey or the Iliad. Just start with something simple, just applying what you know. So that's the point. Start applying, because then the mountain will look more like a molehill, and so it will look more easier. The more you do, the easier it becomes, and you see that if you keep doing it, you will be able to do more and more difficult sentences. You will be able to keep up a conversation eventually, and that's actually your point. Otherwise, there's no point in learning a language if you are not able then to keep a conversation in that language. And again, so that's why I insist, learn the grammar, because otherwise you would just do, like I say, like a phrase book. You know, I can say something, but then what you tell to me in return, I will not be able to understand, possibly. And then, most importantly, I won't be able to react. So to go to a second sentence, to go to a third sentence, so I won't be able to create a conversation with you if I don't learn the grammar well. So even if your teacher doesn't tell you to make your own sentences, start doing that as soon as possible. And also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. So we go to the third tip. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Who cares? I mean, it's true that your aim is to speak correctly, so as correctly as possible. You learn everything well, you follow the rules, and so you don't want to make mistakes. That's normal. But even if you make one, who cares? It's not the end of the world. I mean, people will understand you anyways. So a language is just, it's just to communicate. So as long as you are understandable, don't be afraid. And don't be afraid to ask questions to your teacher. So even if you don't understand something, don't be afraid to ask it. Even 1,000 times. I mean, a teacher is there for that. If something is not clear, you have to ask it. So we go to tip number 4. Trust your teacher. Trust the process, and trust that you will get there to learn the language if you work on it. So if you keep practicing, if you learn your grammar, you make your sentences, you do your exercises, you will get there. And so also try to do your homework. So trust your teacher, trust that she is there to teach you something at best of his or her possibilities, and do your homework. So as I said, don't expect that what you do in class will teach you a language quickly and well. It's not gonna happen. It doesn't matter how many hours you're putting into the class. There are also intensive classes where you go even for 6 hours a week, or even more than that, depending on how it's structured. But even in that case, don't expect that just working in your class will give you something. Do your homework, practice outside of the class. Try to use the language even when you're not in class. So we come to our last tip. So immerse yourself in the language. So I don't know, try to listen to things in the language that you are trying to learn, because that will help you getting used to the sound of the language. So try to read things in the language that you are trying to learn. Again, you don't need to start with difficult things. You can start with very simple articles, even with things for kids, which are actually useful because they use a simple language, so it would be easy for you to read them. Or about watching things in the language or listening, you can start with silly things like soap operas, sitcoms, because your point is not to watch a good show. Your point is to learn the language. And in soap operas, actually, sometimes they actually use a simpler kind of language, everyday kind of language, and so that will help you getting used to that. And then you can go also to more difficult things. At the beginning, don't expect to understand everything. The contrary, you won't understand anything, or you will understand little, maybe half of it. Maybe you would get, say, the gist. So what is going about, you won't understand word per word. Don't expect that, because you need to get used to it. But so the more you keep doing that, the more you will get used to it, the better it will go. And when you read, you will need to search for nearly for every word. You can expect that. You will need to look for almost all the words. But if you keep doing that, again, you will learn those words, and you will be able to read even without a dictionary. So you won't need to look for those words anymore at a certain point. Or yeah, of course, you will also encounter new words, but it will be way more seldom than at the beginning. So we see it's a learning process. So that's my concluding message. The learning a language, so it's a learning process. Learning process, when done well, is never quick, and it's not always easy. Maybe for some people it's easier than for others. Everyone has his own times, has his own ways of learning. Everyone is different. So also don't compare yourself too much to others. Just do your work on it, practice, and you will get there. But again, it's a learning process. So just be patient and trust the process. So I hope this is helpful. This is it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumb up, and please subscribe to my channel if you like my videos, if you want to be notified, or if you want more. Of course, whatever you want to ask, feel free to ask, feel free to comment. If there's any topic that you would like me to talk about, feel free to say, and I'll see you next tutorial. Ciao, ciao!